This is AdTechGod, and I command you to listen to this commercial message. I'd like to introduce you to Publica by IAS, the award-winning CTV ad server trusted by some of the biggest streaming services and smart TV manufacturers globally. Publica helps a growing number of leading AVOD and FAST services to power their programmatic ad break decisioning via products including a unified auction, server-side ad insertion, and a demand-agnostic ad server built from the ground up around streaming. Head to getpublica.com to find out how they help CTV publishers to grow their advertising revenues and provide streaming audiences with linear-like TV ad break experiences. Again, go to getpublica.com. Mediaocean is a sponsor of some AdTechGod content, including the AdTech Forum. However, this interview is not sponsored, and Mediaocean did not pay to be a guest or for production. Welcome to the AdTechGod Pod, your window into the world of advertising technology and the people behind it. I'm your host, AdTechGod. Welcome back to another episode of the AdTechGod Pod, a podcast for the people, about the people that make AdTech great. I'm your host, AdTechGod. Today I'm thrilled to have a very special guest, Bill Wise, the CEO of Mediaocean, the pioneering advertising software company that's been at the forefront of transforming global advertising with its technology. Bill Wise is no stranger to ad tech. With a career spanning over 2 decades, he's been a driving force behind the digital transformation of advertising, making it more efficient, effective, and transparent. Under his leadership, Mediaocean has been an indispensable platform for advertisers and agencies, managing over $150 billion in annual advertising spend. Bill's vision and relentless pursuit of innovation have not only propelled Mediaocean to new heights, but have also helped shape the future of this industry. Beyond his accomplishments at Mediaocean, Bill is known for his entrepreneurial spirit, having successfully founded and led multiple companies to the intersection of technology and advertising. His insights into the advertising ecosystem, the role of technology in driving change, and the future trends in digital marketing are not only profound, but also deeply influential. Today, we're going to talk to Bill about his journey, the challenges and opportunities in our space, and what he sees on the horizon for advertisers and technology providers alike. Bill, welcome to the AdTechGod Pod.
Wow. You know, my mom was a single parent, so I spent a lot of time with my grandparents who were very, very religious. And I woke up this morning knowing I had this podcast. I'm in New York City. It's a little frigid, but the skies were blue. The sun was coming through. My grandmother, who for all those Catholics out there was head of the Rosary Society, and she is looking down on me today, probably proudest that she's ever been. Thank you, AdTechGod, for that intro.
You're very, very welcome. You've obviously made quite an impact on the industry over the years, Bill. I'm really honored to have you here. You're definitely one of the people I've been excited about having. So thank you for being here today.
Listen, I think, prior people who were on the pod have said this, but, your enthusiasm, your positivity, your genuineness, and also I think everyone believes that you truly want to help the ecosystem and the community. And that shines through. And I think that's why you've had the success you've had. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, we need it. I think we need it. I need it. I think it's been a pretty challenging couple of years. I think we're going to continue to see some challenges. So I think spreading some positivity and honestly just hyping everybody up, celebrate the people who are contributing to this industry, who are driving change. I see nothing bad with it. I think we all do our part. Bill, you've obviously, been in the industry for quite some time. Like I mentioned earlier, very entrepreneurial. But how did you get your start in this industry?
Yeah, so for those who are listening who don't know my story, I actually began my career as a CPA, as a certified public accountant. And thank God I wasn't a very good one. But the only company stupid enough to hire a 26-year-old to work on the S1, which is the process and the document to file to go public, was an internet advertising company in 1996. And so I think success is the combination of 4 things, which is calculated risk taking, really hard work, timing, and luck. And so I think for me, landing that job was probably more towards the timing and luck that, the internet was just a starting thing in 96. And luckily for me, people weren't quitting their high end, TV and print sales jobs. And so I was kind of lucky. And then once I got there, I worked my ass off. And so, that company ended up becoming DoubleClick. I was the 61st employee. And it's funny, I fell in love with digital advertising, even though I was on the finance and accounting side. And everywhere I turned, everyone who was kind of senior executive C-level in the industry seemed like they had MBAs from Harvard. And so I was an accountant at the time. I was like, all right, well, it seems like everyone who has Harvard MBAs, executives in the digital ad ecosystem. So I was like, that's it. I got to get an MBA from Harvard. So I went to the CEO of DoubleClick and asked him to write a letter of recommendation. And a couple of weeks later, he called me into his office with the president. Their both name was Kevin. And the Kevins were like, hey, we hear you want to get an MBA from Harvard. And they were like, we were talking about you and we actually have good news and bad news. And at the time, this was coming on my 2-year anniversary at the company. And I was like, just give me the bad news. And they said, yeah, you're not qualified to do anything in accounting. And I just laughed and said, I never was. I just worked my ass off. And so I said, what's the good news? And they said, we decided you're going to get your MBA here. And then introduced me to a guy by the name of Dave Rosenblatt and Chris Saradakis, and they ran the kind of the ad tech business or ad serving business. Then they said, hey, go learn, go to market and sales, introduced me to a guy named Andy Jacobson. Then they said, hey, go learn M&A and corporate development, introduced me to Jeff Epstein and Bill Mills. And, I just kind of like worked all the different jobs. And then finally I was like, I think I can do this myself. And right as I was going to do it, they tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, go launch this direct response media business for DoubleClick. And that was kind of at the turn of the century. And then eventually they got out of the media business. I decided to go with it as an entrepreneur. And then that kind of really embarked on my true entrepreneurial endeavors. And it was actually at that direct response media business, which was called Sonar, that a guy who worked for me, his name was Mike Walrath, we had devised this thing that we called Ad NASDAQ. And because none of us grew up in the advertising world, we were like, advertising is like the only commodity that hasn't been automated. Like it should actually act like the NASDAQ, that for every ad impression, there should be a bid and ask, and technology should decide based on supply demand economics. And we call it as NASDAQ. We then realized after we got a letter from NASDAQ that we can't use their name, and then we pitched it to the executive team at DoubleClick to get funding for this. And they were like, yeah, no, we're not funding anything new. And that's when Mike Walrath broke off and created Right Media. And so, he did that. My son, who's now 25, was just born. And so I wasn't able to take that significant risk, but ended up joining him, later in my career. And in the meantime, became CEO of a search marketing firm. And then that was off to the races. So, so I think it's, in the beginning, timing, luck, a lot of hard work, and some calculated risk taking got me to where I am. And I couldn't imagine, like you, I can't imagine myself in any other industry. The lines between work and social and friends and colleagues are all blurred, and they're blurred for good reasons.
Yeah, I think we value the personal relationships we have with people. I think it doesn't matter if you're in your product or account management or ad operations or sales, business development. It's incredible. It's like you see these events and it's really just hanging out with friends. And you find that a lot of the partnerships lean towards, people you've worked with in the past, people you have a good relationship with, founded on trust first. And then secondly, the product has to work. But I think the value that we have in it is just so much greater than other industries.
It's so true. And, and it's funny because people look at my social media and say, oh my God, you're doing such great things. And like, you're always having fun and you take your kids. And I was like, yeah, like 70% of that is work. It's like, we just happen to have a conference in the south of France and we happen to take meetings on yachts. And I happen to bring my kids to CES and things like that. And my son's now in the industry, which is just incredible. Not at Mediaocean, but another company called Brand Innovators. And it's awesome. It's awesome that I have like the next lineage kind of starting the same thing.
Yeah, my kids definitely know I do this. They think it's awesome. They asked me, what the heck is ad tech? And I drew it out on a piece of paper once. And I kind of showed them like, this is what happens when you look at a website, and this is where an advertiser goes. And then there's all these pieces in the middle, and everybody does their part. And they're like, we don't know what you're talking about, Dad. I was like, okay, we'll talk when we get older.
Remember when we were in fifth grade and they had like how a bill becomes a law?
Yep.
Like, yeah, I imagine you doing that for when a web page loads, here's what happens.
They were laughing. They're like, this doesn't make any sense. I just see a bunch of ads. I'm like, perfect. When you're on your iPad, you see a bunch of ads, just know probably someone I know.
Now, when one of your kids starts asking, hey, how come this intermediary in the supply chain seems to get more than the publisher who has the content, then he's ready for the industry.
The best part was one time they said, why do I keep seeing the same ad over and over again while we were streaming?
Yeah,
And I
reach in frequency, kids. Reach in frequency. It matters.
We're working on it. Okay. We're working on it. Just give us time. Okay. We're still new at this. You've obviously been super successful, right? Mediaocean's been around for quite some time. What do you think in your kind of path and in your journey really makes you the proudest in terms of all your accomplishments that you've had?
Yeah. I should actually just rewind a little bit, just to say how I ended up, at Mediaocean, and then I'll answer your question, which is we ended up selling Right Media to Yahoo. And I know, Brian O'Kelly was on the pod a couple of weeks ago, and talked a lot about, kind of inventing programmatic and what happened. And, what's interesting is we went to Yahoo, and people think, hey, Right Media was a little bit, Yahoo fumbled Right Media. They actually didn't, right? Yahoo was just the world's largest publisher at the time. And they had, what was called Class 2. And we took Class 2 from a $50 million business to a $2 billion business, all on our yield management software. And then what we realized was, God, if we can just help the yield curve for Yahoo's inventory, that's greater than any ad exchange we can create. And so selfishly, Yahoo focused its efforts internally rather than externally, which then allowed, ironically, AppNexus and others to kind of take that baton and run with it for the kind of open web. But it was at Yahoo that I came up with this idea that we ended up pitching to Procter & Gamble. And we went in and said, hey, you have 151 brands at the time. They were only spending a few $100 million in digital advertising at the time. World's, number one marketer who spends $5 billion. At the time, a fraction of that went to digital. But we said, even with $350, $400 million to spend, if you thought of yourselves as an ad tech company and not as a marketer, you'd actually be the number 3 ad tech company in the space, behind basically an ad network at the time and Google's ad network, or AdSense, or whatever they called it. And so we ended up pitching them to become an ad tech company. And at one point they say, hey, what do you call this? And we called it a demand side platform, or DSP. And so as far as I know it's the first real DSP was one that Right Media / Yahoo created for Procter & Gamble. And we ended up walking out with a $250 million, kind of insertion to kind of prove this out. And so we had to go into the marketing investment committee to kind of get formal approvals. And, and on the way out, Mark Pritchard turns to me and said, hey, Bill, I love what you're doing with all this, audience-based targeting and optimization and data. Have you ever thought about applying this to TV? And I looked at him and I go, I don't even know how TV's bought and sold. And he's like, you should look at that, because for P&G, digital is millions, but TV is billions. And so then the entrepreneur in me was like, how the freak is TV bought and sold? I got to find out. And everywhere I turned, there was this company called Donovan Data Systems, which, for lack of a better analogy, was kind of the double click of TV, and also print and radio and out of home and all the other, kind of linear media. And they were kind of the operating system by which all the major ad agencies used, thus all the major marketers. And I found a small startup in Chicago called MediaBank. And I cold called the founders and said, I don't know what your plans are with this business, but it's $1 billion business and we got to talk. And they had stolen one agency, which was Starcom MediaVest in Chicago, away from Donovan. And, frankly, I actually thought at the time, I thought it was, kind of getting the answers to the test in advance, because we all knew what was going to happen, right? Everything would be data enhanced. Everything would move to audiences. Everything would move to programmatic, because at some point, all media will be connected through an IP address. But that was 15 years ago. And, the world wasn't ready for that. And so for a good year, I literally thought I ruined my career, because I quit, my cool digital advertising job. I took over a software company that was processing print and TV spend. And it was literally, the code base was written in COBOL. And so we had to kind of just fully advance the technology and the platform. We had to build a digital platform. Frankly, nobody cared. So, that being said, 15 years later, I kind of feel like we're finally on the precipice of trying to see my original vision through, which is you should be able to manage all media together. You should be able to manage it cross-channel. You should be able to find audiences cross-channel. Your kids shouldn't be seeing the same ad, when they're watching Netflix on their iPad or streaming, on the TV. So we're finally getting there as an industry, and there's some exciting stuff happening. Couldn't be more excited about, the future of the industry and the future of Mediaocean.
I'm with you. I feel like we're really hard on ourselves in terms of where we're at in resolving some of the challenges we have. But when you look back, somebody said the other day that I interviewed, I think it comes out right before yours. Technically, I think the first streaming app was 2013, but really 2017, 16, 17, 18, we started to see some scale. 2020 it popped, right? Like everybody was connected, cord cutters everywhere. Money was, being pumped into CTV. We started addressing a lot of the concerns we had in greater detail, right? Like, how do we frequency cap? How do we measure this better? But really, it's a very young industry, and we've done a lot. Even if you go back to the first streaming, which, let's say 2012. So if you think about it, we've done a lot. So we're really hard on ourselves when we look at where we're at as an industry.
Even, when people talk about like overnight successes typically take a decade. So, people don't realize just the groundwork and it's like kind of building a house. Like, it takes a long time to get the foundation right, the plumbing right, the electricity right. And then once you get all those things, the house goes up pretty quickly. So many of us have been doing foundational work for a long time. And certainly we have here at Mediaocean. And actually getting back to your original question is, when I look back, particularly in, the 15 years I've been running Mediaocean, I think the thing that makes me smile the most is just seeing the growth in people and the industry, and seeing people who worked for me, who went on to become executives at other companies, have been successful. Some people who worked for me who have been so successful, they retired, and they look all great. They're running triathlons, and I get jealous a little bit. But you just, being able to provide for people and, help people buy their first houses and send their kids to college and, do all these big life events, knowing that I had a part in people achieving their personal goals, probably brings me, the most satisfaction of anything I've done.
That's pretty amazing. Look, I hope to reach that point one day, because I want to run a triathlon and have a six pack. But for now, we're just doing podcasts.
Yeah.
One day, you never know. I'm getting there. So when we talk about the industry, we talk a lot about AI, measurement, sustainability. There's a lot of terminology we hear in market. I don't want to call them buzzwords, because I don't think they're buzzwords. I think a lot of them are actually very strong initiatives. Where do you see the industry heading over the next 6 to 18 months in terms of our capabilities and what the industry is focusing on?
Yeah, so clearly AI, but I actually think AI, the interesting part about AI is going to be the capabilities built on top of ChatGPT, OpenAI. And I actually think there needs to be a B2B version of OpenAI, where you can really massage first party data, coordinate, create co-ops, really see the power. And I'm involved in a company called Yobi that's doing just that. I think, everything that's happening with Google and Chrome and cookies is going to pave the way for a lot of disruption. Companies that haven't thought about it need to worry about it. And I think, new winners can emerge. Existing players can get stronger, but I actually think in a world where cookies go away, scale really matters. And one of the things I hate about it is the beauty of digital is kind of the torso and the tail of the market, that you can have a 5 or 6 or 20 or 50 person ad tech company solving a specific problem and be successful. You can be the 10,000th largest site on the internet and provide for your family, right? But with cookies going away and there needing to be active logins, in order to do something like an authenticated ID, that favors who has active logins, people sitting behind a paywall, people who, have registration. And so that kind of more gears itself towards the head and less so for the torso and tail. So companies like New York Times and Wall Street Journal, and big broadcasters, they're going to be the winners, and the tails, are going to be the losers. And that pains me. And the idea that the ultimate winner is going to be big tech, they don't need to win more. They're already winning. So I worry about some of the decisions that are being made. I worry, about what the motivations are around this and the cause and effect, right? If cookies went away 2 years ago, half the ad tech companies in existence would probably gone under. Now the goalposts have been moved so many times. Hopefully people have done their work to figure out, what their new place in the ecosystem is going to be. So that's enough about that. And then, I think the third and last one, you got AI, you got identity overall. The third and last one, and probably most material, is CTV. So, we believe there is a massive opportunity on converged or connected TV, simply because Mediaocean has been processing $70 billion of linear TV, for decades. And we're finally starting to see a convergence there. I think when people think about omni-channel, they think of, web, mobile, connected television. When we think omni-channel, it's literally national television, spot and local, online video, NCTV, and thinking about planning and measuring across that and activating against that with reach and frequency in mind is a massive opportunity, mostly for like the largest marketers in the world, CPG, retail, movie studios, cars and auto, et cetera. And so we've been spending a lot of time, frankly, years. And so I think 24 is going to be really the coming out for CTV.
You touched on a lot there. I'm going to focus on the connected TV part because honestly, I think it's in my best interest to learn more about that. And I agree with you in terms of AI, identity solutions. I think we are prepared. Moving those goalposts multiple times, I think helped. I think we're in a good spot. I think everybody's worried. I think generally there's some great solutions in market that can help. But when it comes to connected TV, we talk about cross-channel and creating the right type of user experience with frequency capping to be able to provide a great experience for users overall, I think has been the biggest challenge. Is Mediaocean doing anything as it relates to that today? Is that where like the core focus is in terms of cross-channel targeting and capabilities?
Yeah, so we have a converged media planner, which ironically was part of our 4C acquisition, and so 4C kind of built a buying platform for what they called closed ecosystems. And, so I think most people, when you say closed ecosystems, immediately think walled gardens. So it's, Facebook, Instagram, X, now TikTok, et cetera, LinkedIn, but the oldest of the walled gardens actually was linear television. And so their platform had been built to ingest linear TV, but, cracking into TV is very difficult, and mainly because we dominate there from an ad tech perspective. So one of the motivations around buying 4C was, we were missing, we kind of missed the boat on buying into the digital walled gardens, but also because, we can take parts of that and connect it to our linear TV system. And one of those things is a converged media planner. So we have it and we've been selling it. A couple of people are beta testing. then the question is, from planning, how do you think about activation? And for the foreseeable future, the upfronts are going to remain the upfronts. The spot market is going to remain the spot market. We have pre-buy systems there. We have buying systems there. We connect to the whole ecosystem, including Creative and Nielsen and others. We've also spent a lot of time creating APIs so that the alternative currencies, iSpot, VideoAmp, ComScore, et cetera, can jump in there if need be or people want to. And then the question is, how do we think about CTV or digital TV activation? And we have decided to partner with Magnite on that for now as the first one. And if successful, maybe the only one. But we did our diligence and we're excited about the partnership and excited about that being, just kind of one of the pieces in what we call CTV, which is all of it together. And so it's just like anything else in this industry, connectivity is the most important thing. We have connectivity to everything other than kind of the digital CTV activation. And given what we talked about with identity and cookies going away, relationships with the broadcasters actually is the hardest thing. And it's the SSPs that actually have those. And so we wanted to partner with someone there. We did our diligence, decided on Magnite. And so we're excited. We're excited overall about everything from, planning all the way through to the back office and being able to do that for every piece of TV. And I'm not sure any other company can do it.
I think what's interesting is how you have pipes to everything. I think that's what's really interesting to me. So like, obviously you work in the linear space, you're working in digital space, you have the media buying piece. It's actually pretty cool. I didn't know this, Bill. So like, I'm obviously familiar with Mediaocean and the name. I'm familiar with you and Aaron. If he's listening, Aaron, thank you for putting Bill on the podcast. But I'm very familiar with the general kind of offering in market. But what I didn't know was all the integrations in the API, connected television integrations, linear integrations. And I think that is super valuable. And I think Magnite's a great company to partner with personally. I've worked with them, not as an employee, but I have worked with them. They have a phenomenal team over there. So hopefully they deliver on what you're looking for.
I always say people don't really care about plumbing and electricity until it's broke. And, I think it's a double-edged sword. I think a lot of people know Mediaocean. A lot of people don't know what Mediaocean does. And that's because we do a lot of plumbing and electricity. And the fact that nobody talks about it means that we're doing our job and we're stable and it works.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if it's not like a sexy buzzword in market, everybody's like, wow, what is this? Nobody really cares. But as a foundational ad tech company that's required, you're right. Nobody will mention it until something breaks and they're like, oh, we'll just blame it on Mediaocean. But generally, I learned a lot today and I did not know this.
Now I feel like we need to come up with an acronym like, PES. I just made that up. Plumbing and Electricity Software. Maybe that's it. Maybe I just got to come up with an acronym.
I'm going to trademark it.
There you go.
Bill, that actually brings us to the end of the podcast. This was super insightful. And I actually learned a lot about your background.
Don't tell me that. We're having too much fun.
Well, we'll be in touch soon, I hear. So here's some fun stuff going on.
By the way, I do have to ask you on the pod, we have a Super Bowl ad. I don't know if you saw it. We used our technology to actually buy a Super Bowl ad in a local market, one local market, just Fort Wayne, Indiana. But it's part of a larger marketing campaign. So, Aaron told me I have to ask you on the pod, would you be willing to go on in one of our marketing campaigns and be part of the
Sure.
creative?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
Amazing.
I'd love to. I think that'd be fun.
Amazing.
That's what it's all about, Bill. In the end, let's just have some fun.
Thank you so much for having me on the pod. Thank you for what you do. And thank you for being a good person in a great industry.
Thank you for saying that, Bill.
Cheers.
Take care. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the AdTechGod Pod, a podcast for the people, about the people that make AdTech great. Stay connected with me for more insights, trends, and interviews in the realm of AdTech. Don't miss out on our latest updates, so follow me on X, Instagram, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't forget, ATG Slack community has insights, networking opportunities, and jobs. Keep the conversation going and stay at the forefront of AdTech innovation.